Please share with me your first, the last name, where you're located, and the name of your business.
My name is Jake Sucoff. I am the founder and CEO of Patient Procure, a full service marketing agency, and I am calling from Montclair, New Jersey, which is just a stone's throw from Manhattan.
Do me a favor, share with me about Patient Procure and let me know what it's all about.
Yeah, so I started Patient Procure back in like July or August of 2024. And it came from, I had been at a number of different agencies over a few years, and having seen what happens behind the scenes and seeing it be demystified, I realized I could pretty easily spin up an agency myself. So we focus on healthcare companies, anybody from a single individual physician who works out of a small office,
Mhm.
concierge medicine, all the way up to large MSOs that have, dozens of brands within their portfolio and hundreds of locations. So we've done it all. And what is the my reason for building it is really wanting to be the master of my own destiny. I worked in 9 to 5s for my entire career, and at a certain point realized I wanted to stop renting. I wanted to own,
Mhm.
and that's really the motivation behind starting my own company.
Nice. And the medical field, were you in the medical field before?
I've never been directly in the medical field. I started my career in asset management, and we were raising money for biotech companies. And I did that for a few years. So that was my first intro into a tangentially related field. And then I kind of fell into it accidentally. One of the agencies I worked for was focused on healthcare, and it brought me really great satisfaction to help build systems that put patients in touch with the healthcare that they needed. So it felt like a really great natural fit.
Yeah. And I love when that natural fit just happens because then it's a little bit easier to be able to be the founder and guide people and have things go a little bit more smoothly. I understand that you also do some mentorship as well. Yes.
I've done lots of mentorship. I spent a few years as the program director of excuse me, of WeWork Labs, which was the incubator program within WeWork. And at that time, I had, you know, like 70 or so early stage companies that I was working as the point person for all sorts of things. And in that time, I learned a lot about the early stages of business. And that's carried on since. I've derived a lot of satisfaction of advising people on what they should be focusing on with their businesses, and especially younger folks who are just getting started in entrepreneurship. It brings me a great deal of satisfaction to help them on their journey.
What's the difference between mentoring and choosing to say that you're coaching someone, Jake?
Well, I think the biggest one right off the bat is the financial part of it. I don't ask people for money. I don't charge them to do it. I do it because I enjoy doing it, and I do it because people did it for me, and it was, really important for my growth as an entrepreneur. I think there's a lot of overlap. It's really important as a coach or mentor to take this kind of Socratic line of mentorship where you're showing people the path. You're not giving them answers. You're helping them ask the right questions and pull the answers from themselves. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the biggest part of it is um, you need to approach it with humility and understand, unless you have really specific direct experience in the field that the person is building a company in, it's never going to be apples to apples to an experience that you've had. So approaching it with, just trying to problem solve together and not position yourself as these are the answers that you should definitely follow. I've always found that to be the most effective method.
How many startup companies have you assisted or guided or pretty much mentored into?
I mean, if you consider all of those companies at WeWork, too many. I mean, and look, a lot of these companies were beyond help. I mean that in a good way. I mean that they're
Yeah.
so far advanced that I wasn't able to offer them anything beyond maybe a shoulder to cry on when they needed it. I for those companies, I tried to get them in touch with investors and other incubators or accelerators to give them capital. But since then, I probably have 2 or 3 people a year who I get connected to through various sources, and it's off. My the first agency that I worked for was a direct to consumer agency. We worked with a lot of these brands in food and beverage and fashion and apparel and beauty. And so, and I, that's what my podcast was about when I had it. So I still get people who reach out to me even to this day about getting help on the direct to consumer side. Um, but yeah, I mean, a few here and there. It's not something that I'm active. I'm pretty entirely focused on growing my business right now. So it's
Yeah.
not something that I'm seeking out at the moment. But when people reach out to me and say, hey, I have this person in my network, they're looking for some guidance here. Can you hop on a call with them? I am always happy to do that.
That's awesome because yes, like you said, that's not your main focus. So when it comes to Patient Procure and you launching this business, how long has it been up and running?
Just around 8 months or so. It's
Mhm.
still we're still in the early days, and we've gotten some really great early success, which has been very, very motivating to keep pushing. And I my goal for this company is really to make it a lifestyle brand. I want this to be something that I'm not looking to scale it and exit it, although, I'm not opposed to that. But
Yeah.
my goal is really to grow it. Right now, I've been very fortunate that sales has not been an issue. And so we're really laser focused on operations, creating efficiencies, trying to integrate AI and automations where I can to make people more effective and make systems less fragile. Um, and the goal is to get it to a place where it's no longer reliant on me, and I don't have to work, 12 hours a day like I am currently, and can just kind of, spend as much time on my hobbies and with my family as I can.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, within 8 months, what did it take and how much of you personally did it take for you to launch this business?
Well, it's taken everything. Look, I have 2 small children. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Mhm.
And my goal has always been to never let the business take precedence over my family. And I think I've done a really good job being present, not taking phone calls, not answering emails when I'm with my kids, not
Mhm.
excusing myself from the dinner table when we're having a meal. So generally, I've been really good at setting boundaries. I think that's super important because at the end of the day, that's my goal. So it doesn't make sense to me to sacrifice the thing I'm looking for in the short term when I have it, just so that
Yeah.
I can get there faster. That said, I have to be extremely, extremely diligent. I will drop my son off at school, and then I am on nonstop until I pick him up, and then we eat dinner, we hang, I put him to bed, and then I'm on, from like 8 or 8:30 until 11:30, or whenever I can stand it. And that's, you know, unfortunately the reality of entrepreneurship. I mean, nobody's going to help you if you don't help yourself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I am a solo founder. I have incredible people in my business who I can rely on. And that's a major part of building any business. Is, I mean, every business is just about the people. At the same time, I'm still the bottleneck in a lot of places, in most places, and I have to be the one to make the decisions. So, um, as I said earlier, I'm hoping to get to a point sooner than later where I can excuse myself from more of these organizations,
Mhm.
and implement systems where it's not so reliant on me. But early days, if you want to be successful, you got to grind, and I think that's not a surprise to anybody. I think that that's where I get caught up and frustrated with media, is the like glorification of entrepreneurship and looking at it as if it's glamorous, and it's not. It is extremely hard work. You lose sleep. It
Mhm.
produces a ton of anxiety. Uh, I would not trade it for anything. You know, the I really try to keep this goal really close to my heart all the time, which is I am battling to get to a place where I will be free at some point. I will not have any bosses. I will not be reliant on a company for my well-being. It will be fully of my own doing. And so that allows me to kind of push past it. But, you know, especially early on, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, or people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, I hate the name entrepreneur. I think that's kind of
Really?
offensive. I think people who are aspiring entrepreneurs are looking for an answer of like, how do I get my first client? How do I do this? And the reality is you have to figure that part out yourself. You need to, it's the kind of thing where if me telling you that you need to grind and figure it out yourself is, you know, deters you from trying, then you shouldn't be doing this in the first place. You
Yeah.
know, you have to hustle in the beginning, and that doesn't mean be profitable. That doesn't mean get 10 clients. Get a client. Just figure out how somebody will pay you one time for this thing, and then I'll be a lot more willing to come in and talk through it. But if you are, I don't like calling people lazy because I think that it's overused, and oftentimes there's a lot of other things that go into deterring people from work that is not about being lazy. But if you can't figure out that first step, this isn't the life for you.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, I was in a, I don't even call it 9 to 5 anymore. I call it a 9 to 9. I was in a 9 to 9 and and I switched from corporate into the entrepreneur. And no one says it's going to take every piece of you. And we end up being lazy because we're super exhausted. It's like, you know
Yeah,
what, I just don't even want to do it. So it's crazy. It's crazy.
lazy. I hate lazy because it implies that it's almost a character flaw when the reality is there is almost certainly something that is preventing you from doing it. Either you're afraid or you're intimidated by the task or you just hate doing it. There are reasons why you're procrastinating and not doing the work that you know needs to get done. And I think saying lazy just it doesn't properly address what the underlying issues are. So I try not to. I think that there's a whole fallacy in life about what laziness is. I'm not saying, I mean, there's definitely some lazy people out there, but I think for the most part, people refrain from doing the things that need to get done for other reasons, not just because they're like, you know, they can't be bothered.
What tips would you have for an entrepreneur or someone who's going into?
Mm. Entrepreneurship is about one's struggle with themselves and their ability to overcome the uh, the habits and the characteristics that they have that are preventing them from being successful. Okay, what do I mean by that?
Mhm.
Um, I'm not a morning person. You know, I operate best at night. I'm not super organized. You know, I am a talker. I'm a salesperson. I love operations. I love implementing software and figuring out how things work. I'm not prompt. It's hard for me to get to places on time. And over my career, I've had to figure out how can I be successful despite my shortcomings in certain areas? How can I overemphasize the things I'm good at and avoid the things I'm bad at? So the biggest piece of advice that I would give is first and foremost, figure out what you're great at and try to like really focus on getting better there and having that be the cornerstone of what you're doing and get help in the areas that you're deficient in. I have a VA, I have a fleet of people who I contract to. You know, at this point, around 15 or so individuals who are working, you know, between almost full time to, you know, a couple hours a week
Yeah.
that I'm delegating the things that I'm bad at. Also, you can't run a company and scale by yourself. You need help. But so first and foremost, there's a fallacy in trying to get better at the things you're bad at. If you're bad at them, just you're bad at them. You're
Yes.
almost certainly you're going to be much more effective by focusing on the things that you're good at than the things that you're bad at. So first and foremost, that. Um, Secondly, and this was kind of what I was alluding to in my intro here, it's entrepreneurship is just a mental struggle. Everything is happening between your ears. It's such a like a trope, but it's you just have to overcome your limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
And it can be so cheesy. I know a lot of people are don't want to listen to these, like Tony Robbins, like, I the Tiger, Grant Cardone, like, you can do it. But like, it's real. I mean, if you can keep pushing, if you can persevere, the only thing that's going to prevent you from being successful is you quitting. Now, of course, there's many instances where you should quit and then try something new. I mean, there's no um, it doesn't serve you to be so stubborn that you are continuing a dying company just out of pride. But one of the biggest unlocks that I had over the past 8 months of building this company is understanding that the company can only be as successful as like I can be from a mental standpoint. In
Mhm.
other words, if I can get rid of my self doubt, if I can get rid of my fears of failure, if I can get rid of my limiting beliefs that are preventing me from doing the things I need to do in a day to be successful, I'm head and shoulders more successful than I would have been had I sat there at the computer and said, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. Is this client going to call me out? Are these people going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about?" Like, that imposter syndrome is real, and I've struggled with it a lot, and I still struggle with it to this day. But being able to just ignore those voices in the back of your head that are telling you you can't do it, why you, there's no way it's going to work, and just putting one foot in front of the other, that is crucial. You'll never succeed if you can't do that. And so I know it's a little cheesy, but I am a huge believer in that, and I've that's really transformed my business over the past year.
What are the greatest joys of what you do?
I love people. My whole career has been partnerships, biz dev, sales, that human element. How do you create deals and um, you know make partnerships that are mutually beneficial? I love working with people and building this company. Even when I was first starting and I had two contractors who were working 5 hours a week each, I was really aggressively um, adamant about creating a company culture, even though they had a bunch of other clients and I wasn't the only person they worked with. And to this day, it doesn't matter if the person is working 40 hours a week for me or if they're working 5 hours a week for me. I have them join uh, calls. I treat everybody like they're a full-time employee. My goal is to make every single one of these contractors a full-time employee. I want this to be a real company. And so I just love finding people that I think are going to be really good fits for a role and then watching them prove me right. That's one of the greatest joys that I have when I get a person and I'm like, "Oh man, this person's going to transform my company." I'm allowing them to live the life that they want to live. They have the flexibility and they have the ability to, in most cases I'm working with folks who are abroad, who are in
Yes.
other countries, who don't have an opportunity to earn a living in their own town.
Yeah.
They're working in remote parts of the world where the local economy and infrastructure is not very good. And by working with me, it gives them an opportunity to have a life that they couldn't have otherwise. And just feeling that responsibility when an employee tells me that I'm changing their life because of this opportunity, it's the most gratifying possible thing I can hear. And so that's really one of the greatest joys I have in building a company, is finding incredible people all over the world, giving them an opportunity to be successful and watching them like turn into this rock star employee
Yeah.
when I had a hunch that they would.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.